down the hammer and pick up the pencil. You're about to listen to the Savvy Radio Show. Learn from real-life real estate investors, experience revealed with the Savvy Landlord as your host.
Ladies and gentlemen, yep, boys and girls, welcome to the Savvy Radio Show and my co-host. I don't know how long my co-host is going to ride with Tonto here, or was it Lone Ranger? That's me. But I got a great co-host. If you don't know about Chad Misseldine, you're missing out. This is a super coach, builder. He has, I don't know. There's so many titles I could give the guy. There is no title. His name is just Chad Misseldine.
I think you're building it up too much, man.
Yeah, I'm trying. I was just trying to make shit up, but and I shouldn't have cursed. I'm trying not to, but shit's really not it's like dung. But anyway, listen, we're jumping back from episode number 734, Great Friends and Mentors. Man, I'm telling you, if you haven't heard that one, you need to go back and listen to that. It's about getting uncomfortable with another person in your world, like a mentor. And, we talked a little bit about Chad's success in Texas and being a spec builder of 150 or so homes. It's off the charts. But that subject, mentorship and friends, I think is critical in society alone, not just for entrepreneur and business. I'm talking about just someone coming alongside you, grabbing your shoulder and saying, look, I'm here with you. I can answer these questions. I've been here. I died on the cross a few times, and let me help you. So, but what came out of that episode, number 734, was getting uncomfortable. And what is incredible, simple topic that we have going on today is being uncomfortable. And I think there's 2 points that I want to throw at you, Chad. One is like being uncomfortable intentionally, like I'm going to jump into a freezing pool, or circumstances, and I'm in this right now in my own world. I am uncomfortable about business transactions I thought that were going to work out in a certain magnitude, and they've backfired in my face. And so I'm uncomfortable. How do you handle uncomfortability? What is uncomfortable? It's a growth thing in my mind. I mean, It's something that pushes you to another level. If you can't, I love it when, a young entrepreneur came up to me, needed some help. I bought this restaurant and he's dying. Right. And I'm like, okay, bub, I got you. I go like, well, let's just break it down. So, I think when you're in an uncomfortability position, everything is swirling and you're just upset and you're frustrated, and in your own mind, it's larger than life. It's more than you can think it is. So when I just sat down with him and I said, let's just write down these numbers. Okay. What do you owe for this? So it came down to $80,000 of his debt service that he had on this bad business transaction. And I wasn't trying to be douchey. And I'm like, first of all, if you can't handle this, how in the world you're going to handle $1 million property? As this guy was telling me, and I can understand, he's just in his 20s, a very young entrepreneur, and $80,000 to him
seemed like $1 million
was off the charts. And I tried to hold back. In my mind, I was like, dude, $80,000 would be a great transition for me. I know I can probably get that done somehow in a short amount of time. And I was dealing with $1 million issue at that moment. And I just think that anytime you're in an uncomfortable position, what is it going to serve you? Where are you going to go with this? Is it going to make you a better person? Are you going to run from this circumstance? Are you going to dig in and take the fruit that's out of this circumstance? And I think it just always constantly makes you a better person, period.
Yeah, I loved how you talked about, you almost get to where you want to seek that out. The problem is most of us, Stephen, and this is me half of my life, I want to be comfortable, right? It's human nature. I mean, part of that's in our DNA hardwired. We want to be safe, right? I mean, that was thousands of years ago. That's where we came from. Keep safe, right?
Yeah.
Fire good.
I think it's a mechanism in our body.
Animals, scary darkness, bad, right? And so how do you seek it out? And then I loved how you talked about how some of it is intentional, that you seek out discomfort. And most of us aren't great at that either. We have to kind of force ourselves to do it. We mentioned jumping in the cold pool, cold shower, whatever like that. And then how do you respond to the uncomfortable situations that come at you? I think there's both kinds of those. And if you peel back the layers a little bit, the thing I have to think about is, what is my ultimate goal in life? Is it to be comfortable and have everything go well and And because I know guys and girls and older people that have made that their priority life, and they've fought and worked and slaved and done all these crazy things, and then gotten later in life and realized they're so comfortable that they're completely miserable. And they've taken all the growth, like you said, they've taken the charm, the growth, the adventure, the excitement, all the great things that come with difficult situations, and they've put them all out of their life, right? So they're so comfortable, they're miserable. And then it's too late at that point. They're like later in life and like, geez, I'm so comfortable now that I'm completely bored and I have nothing to grow for. So that to me is like, I think it's important as a reminder for myself sitting on your podcast going, dude, I want to put myself in situations where I'm always growing. I'm always challenged. I don't want to get comfortable, but it's human nature to get that way.
Yeah, I think that sometimes ignorance can bring in uncomfortability. I know for a fact that, when you were talking, I was considering an idea that I used to live in Norman. And when I started my booking company, I used to book bands around the country, and I would work 16 to 12-hour days. And then I realized Norman was not the place that I wanted to reside in. And I eventually moved, if you know, a little history here, to Midwest City. And
Look out, folks.
I know. I was in an apartment building right off of I-35 or 40. And I remember getting on my knees praying, I am in an uncomfortable position because I have 2 rental payments I was paying. Now, but this is before real estate. And it was very uncomfortable to the degree where I don't even know how I can function. And I think that out of ignorance now, as later in life, I would never do that. Now, through that process, obviously I made it, right? But at that moment, it felt uncomfortable. It felt impossible to do something. And I think that and this is what the podcast is about, is try to get you uncomfortable without ignorance. And, Chad's going to get into some examples of his own personal life and myself too. Just how, looking back at the uncomfortability, was it ignorance? Was it just fate? Was it, how do you define what true uncomfortability is? Obviously, it's easy. Another thing I was thinking about was Tony Robbins. Oh, let's walk on some coals. Mm-hmm. It's funny. There's a group of friends that I know that, go to all the Tony Robbins, workshops. And I'm like, one time was enough for me.
I have a tattoo on my back of Tony Robbins. I'm just kidding.
Oh my God. But I mean, let's get into it. Give some examples of, something that you were uncomfortable at. That moment for me at that, paying 2 rental payments, living in 2 locations. I thought I arrived at that moment, but I really didn't understand budgeting. And, I took this ignorant approach. And I remember, it was only through God's grace that I made it through that level of ignorance and the uncomfortability. And, has it helped me? Has it served me? As I said earlier, kind of in a roundabout way that, I won't do that again.
Right. Yeah. You just don't know what you don't know at that point, right? You really don't.
I thought I was a business person.
Yeah. And I was like, I told the story a few episodes ago of, building furniture, and then ended up, all of a sudden I was a home builder. I knew nothing about home building. That was very uncomfortable, but I thought we had made it because I think my take home pay was about $1,800 a month.
As just working for what? For that other job?
For a builder. Yeah. So I was really excited to have a job, but it was only paying me, it's like $450 a week.
I know, dude, I love that you said that, because a lot of people are just stuck in that arena of $2,000, $3,000 a month. And you sold those pews yielding around $10,000, which was 5 months of freedom. If you equate it. Right.
But I got the job, and I think what was uncomfortable at that point is I was brand new married. So here I'm supposed to be like the guy that provides for my new marriage and wife and stuff. So I was making $1,800 a month, and we got this apartment that was like $900 a month apartment, half my living expenses. So we had like less than $1,000 to live on, which is really tough to do even back in like the 2000s, right? It was like not much. It was super uncomfortable. Plus I was in a job that I didn't know what the heck I was doing each day. And I had school loans to pay. I deferred those for a while, but these were $600 a month, school loans. So we were in a really bad situation where I'm like, this is ridiculous. The great thing about the builders that I work for, they're like, hey man, we can't pay you a lot, but we'll help you build your own house. And then how can you afford one? Well, so that was the hard part, right? So they eventually started helping me get bonuses and stuff like that too. But, if there's scrap trim left over, I'd go throw it in my truck and, stick it in storage deal. And they kind of eventually build some of that up. But they helped me get a loan. These guys were, but it was really uncomfortable. And to do that, part of that journey for us was moving out of the nice place and moving into the ghetto. And this is when we lived in Fort Worth. Some of my friends call it the barrio, the ghetto. And it was, I found this deal with a buddy. We paid like $400 a month for this rent house. And you talk about getting uncomfortable is why I thought of this story. So here I have this this wife that's like, I'm trying to provide for her. And instead of living in the nice part of town with like the Neiman Marcus and all this nice stuff, nice apartment, safe place, dude, I move her to the ghetto, and it's the craziest part of Fort Worth you've ever set foot in. And this house was filled with roaches and mice. I mean, the roaches were so big, Stephen, they were like,
Damn.
like the ones you see on the National, Enquirer, whatever the TV show is. But there was a gang. I remember a guy sold drugs that lived behind us. He was a gangbanger, and he had. And
you were newly married.
Yeah, brand new married. But here's what happened: we decreased our living expenses by half. And when you're only making that much money, we started saving money each month. Now it took a while, and then we got building our own new house, and eventually got to move into that house. And interest rates were low.
So was this a vision that you had?
Yeah, it was like,
so you told yourself you're going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, we got to figure out how to do things different, because if we do what everybody else is doing, then we're going to get what everybody else is getting. And I think maybe for those of you that are listening today, that you're kind of like somewhere in this journey. Maybe you're not starting out. Maybe you're an entrepreneur and you've been following Stephen for a while. Maybe you're real estate. And we all look up now with social media. We can kind of, tend to compare ourselves with everybody else, right? And everybody's driving this, living here in nice places, wearing nice clothes. And the reality is, if we do the same thing that everybody else is doing, we're going to get what everybody else is getting, which is broke, in debt, right? Stuck in a job you hate, stuck in a situation with a boss that's a complete jerk, that you're not in your sweet spot, you're not growing, you're not developing. So we just kind of figured out early on, like, dude, I'm going to have to do something different to flip this script. And thankfully, I had some guys that helped me along the way. I give them a lot of credit. But my wife was the one that was willing to do it. And this was a time where she just swallowed her pride and I swallowed my pride. And we just made some really tough sacrifices, ended up building that house. And then long story short, we moved like 12 times in 8 years. We would build these, we started building houses, selling them, living them, build them, stage them, selling them. And before I know it, we'd gone from being completely broke and completely having nothing, but to having this really kind of cool investment deal going. And it's all because we decided to get uncomfortable
and make a sacrifice.
Yeah, and make a sacrifice. And again, I wish I could take all the credit for it, but I had guys that taught me that. They were like, dude, you don't need to be out buying this truck. You need to be out, drive the banger, drive the piece of junk, and don't take the 10 vacations a year. Go somewhere, sure. But I just think that's hard for a lot of us now. We think we're entitled. We think we deserve to live this certain way. Yep. And we saw our parents live this way, our grandparents, our best friends. And, the reality is, if we do what everybody's doing, we're just going to get what they're getting.
When you said the $1,800, the first thing that popped in my mind was most people just adjust to that.
Right.
They just, okay, I can only afford. And it reminded me of, I was hiring someone. This is 20 years, a long time ago, 20-year story. I was just starting out with one of my businesses at the time, and I needed to hire someone. And this gal came in. She was an older gal. And I was like, okay, what compensation, what do you want per hour is what I said to her exactly. And she's like, I gotta have no less than $8 an hour. This is, and see, that's comfortability. And it's not like, did she push herself and say, I need $12 an hour? Do I need $20 an hour? No. I think that she sold herself short, you think? Yeah, I just think that it's just comfortable. This is her life that she created in her mind. And she didn't even ask me what the job was willing to pay. And I think that's the problem. I think we're just so used to or trained in society, this is how it is. And there's a better way. Mm-hmm. And I think there truly is a better way. When I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it set me free that there is a better way, that no matter where you come from, what you look like, black, white, red, yellow, no matter, that you have the ability to be wealthy. And what is wealth to you may be different to me. But I just, when I first thought that, when you said $1,800, I wondering, and then a lot of people was like, and it was reflecting back on my brother. This is all that I can get. This is all that I deserve. And I just think,
I'm worth, maybe.
And I think that boils down to comfortability.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone is just comfortable. We just make it just enough. Now, yeah, there's other people that you were explaining that are living this high life in debt. And, I read the other day that, our millennials and society is in higher debt than it's ever been. And then, they say it's inflation or they say all this other stuff. But I think it boils down to being comfortable.
Right.
It's so easy to go get a credit card. It's so easy to charge that up.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable to say no.
Well, especially it's easy to be comfortable when that's what we've seen growing up, or that's the only metric we've seen. We haven't surrounded ourselves with people that are doing something different. And I'm not here to claim I'm doing anything better than you are or anybody else, but I probably wouldn't be where I am in life today had I not learned from other people along the way that taught me how to push it and taught me how to get uncomfortable. The guys I was building for, eventually they're like, hey, you're building these houses pretty quick for us. You're making us some money. So I'm making these guys a lot of money. And they're like, hey, what if we start bonusing you per house? So they started paying me $1,000 if I would finish a house.
And that was their suggestion?
Yeah. Yeah. But that opportunity, and I kind of asked too, I'm like, hey guys, I'm kind of struggling over here with $1,800 a month. But I went out and, would grind it out with these neighborhoods, and we were building like, 20, 30 houses at a time. I mean, but I started seeking those opportunities because I knew that there was goals that I wanted to have. I wanted to, be able to have a kid at some point and pay for that. I wanted to be able to pay school loans. I wanted to buy a vehicle and have that paid for. And so I think there's a balance for all of us in, it's one thing to be uncomfortable, but it's another thing to be uncomfortable for a reason. And you have to have if you're listening today, it's not just about denying yourself or living below your means. I mean, those are all good things. You should do that. But what's your vision? What do you want? What do you want out of your life? Do you want to be working $8 an hour job for the rest of your life? Do you want to be, stuck in the hourly deal? And again, I'm not dogging you, but a lot of times we have a vision problem, right?
No,
so,
I literally just wrote that down, and I was like, my question for you was, did you even know that you would be where you're at today? I mean,
not in a million years.
Think about it. I mean, you probably had this vision of being a builder, right? I mean, these guys pretty much encouraged you and showed you the way, and you found great success in this. But what was that vision?
Yeah, I think
a vision needs to make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What does it look like?
That's right. And most of us, our vision isn't clear enough. It's not big enough. It's not bold enough. So it's not motivating enough. And we're just kind of short-sighted in that area. And so if, maybe if you heard Stephen or something he said there and you're listening to this and it's like, or you heard us just say the word vision, what does that look like for you? And I think it's one thing to write your bucket list or goals out. I mean, those are fine, but a really great vision is something that will help you get uncomfortable and make the sacrifices that you need to make to be able to accomplish that. And so for us, it was being able to have options. I wanted to have options, man. I wanted to be able to take my wife on a trip if I wanted to somewhere. I wanted to be able to not live in the drug dealer's backyard and have, bass music rattling my windows all night long and the bulldog that lived 10 foot from my head that I thought was in the bedroom that was going to bite my head off at night. I wanted something different than that. And the vision got clear enough in my mind. And so then I was able to go, okay, how uncomfortable can we get here?
So let's give an example of something uncomfortable. Let's talk about, I don't know if a lot of people don't know this, but Chad is an author as well. He's written a couple books. What's one of your books? Tell me one of them. What's the name of it?
Yeah, the first one I wrote it's called A Tale of Two Leaders.
Okay, and you can get it on Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's about two leaders that were struggling in their business. They were growing their company, but their life was kind of chaotic. They didn't have what they wanted.
Okay, so let's break this down. Someone has a vision to write a book, okay? Or that's a dream, let's say.
Yeah.
Vision, dream, goal, whatever you want to call it. But it's kind of an uncomfortable situation. And why would it be uncomfortable? It's something that they've never done before.
Right.
So let's break it down, Chad. How does someone get to this vision or this goal or this dream of publishing a book, but I'm uncomfortable about it. How would you walk someone through to break that uncomfortability?
Yeah, I think one, paint that vision really clear, not just black and white.
The why.
Yeah, make that super clear.
Why do you want to write a book?
In vivid color. I don't want to write a book to be a best. I mean, you might want to be a New York Times bestseller. It's not why I wrote mine. I wrote mine because I wanted to add value to people, and there are still people that read. I like to listen to books. Not a lot of people read, but I wanted to be able to, when I met somebody on the street corner or in a business, I wanted to be able to share part of my story with them and put it in their hands. And I wanted to put a resource there that took all these stories that I've like heard over the years and added value to them. But so I had to get really clear on that.
So the why was really big.
The why was super clear. And then I had to ask myself, okay, and a mentor of mine named Jeremy taught me this, but where is the resistance going to be for that? So I'm going to have to get uncomfortable in order to do that, right? So I had to list out all the distractions or things that would take me away from that. Skill, experience, time, ability to focus for long periods of time, ability to, I don't really love sitting at a desk for like a super long amount of time. So there was a whole list of reasons keeping me from doing that, right?
Of running a business.
Resistance, and you have to overcome that, right? So the vision's got to be high enough, the resistance has got to be low enough, but then also you have to be dissatisfied with something along the way. What I was dissatisfied with was I didn't have a tool to put in people's hand if I went to speak at a company or if I went to coach somebody.
And that was the bigger goal, the bigger dream.
Yeah, I wanted to have something I could go, hey man, this is a little part of my story. Here's all these lessons that I've learned from all these leaders over the years. Here, read this. Let's talk about chapter 2, chapter 3 next time we meet. And again, it wasn't for really anything to do with me as much as it was having a vision to help people. And I know that sounds so cliche, but
it's interesting.
That's what allowed me to kind of get through all the hard stuff, right? Because it takes a while to write a book.
It's interesting. Our personalities are totally different, and I love it because you are a macro guy. You are big vision, big steps, and I'm micro. I'm over here. All right, how could I get a client from being uncomfortable, selling them, and then getting them uncomfortable in doing this process? And sometimes I would let them have, okay, let's just write an outline.
Yeah.
And then let's just write 10 things down.
Yeah.
And then that made them a little bit uncomfortable, but they don't see, as a coach, they don't see that that's a step already taken. And so the next time is like, okay, let's write a paragraph. And then boom, micro steps. I love that you are painting the picture in a macro way, a big way of the end result to keep that driver going. And I think that's the only way you're ever going to get out of being uncomfortable.
And I think you bring up a really great point of being able to do something like you mentioned, whether it's, you're the one with the podcast here, buddy, and that's got a lot of people listening and I don't, and that's fine. I'd love to get one started, but the point you just made, if you guys are listening, as Stephen just said, is you've got to marry that to action at some point. You've got to take a next step. And so if I've got a dream, I've got to have a really clear vision. There's going to be resistance that I'm going to have to fight. I've got to be dissatisfied about something in order to change, but I've also got to have a clear next step. And that's what my friend Jeremy taught me. And it might not be the next 10 next steps. It might just be the one next step, right? So you have to have a next step of action. And sometimes it can help having somebody help guide you in that's been down that road. So you can seek out a mentor, go find, that's what I did. I've talked to 5 different people that wrote books. And I said, tell me about your process. There's also a lot of great, obviously, videos on online, YouTube and all that stuff.
Well, I think you said the right thing. It's like, if I was going to sum this podcast up, it would say your next step will break the uncomfortability. And I think that's just simple. I think we just get caught up on, everyone has a different personality. Some people have to have this big grand vision. Some people need to have it all or detailed out, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. But the goal is to do it, to accomplish the big vision, the big why, and to get uncomfortable. And how to do that could be just doing the one step, making the one outline. Or in your case, what you just was a wonderful suggestion. You called one person, hey, tell me about your process of writing a book. And I have a podcast or coming somewhere about opportunities in that regard. It's like, how do you recognize opportunities? Well, when you talk to someone new that's written a book before, they're going to say something to you that you've not heard, or they're going to put the 2 to 2 together for you, like you had last time. 2 and 2 equals this, and that would create something in your mind to go do that, which broke the whole thing of being uncomfortable. Uncomfortable, let's define it even tighter, is being frozen, not willing to move
That's
forward.
right. Yeah. I had somebody ask me, Stephen, the other day, they said, what's the biggest problem you see with like a lot of the younger leaders? I don't mean necessarily younger, maybe age, but younger in experience, those that you work with today, you know, younger generation, et cetera. What's the biggest challenge? And I said, hands down, there's self-awareness there. A lot of us have self-awareness. We don't marry that self-awareness to action. So we're not taking the ball and running with it. So again, I think what he said is super wise, guys. If you're listening and trying to get better as a leader, as an entrepreneur, you don't have to have the next 10 steps. Just know the next best step, take it, you know, and make sure you're moving in a direction that you have like a vision for, you know, and just keep taking those next best steps. Sometimes you might take 2 steps backwards, right? And you realize, geez, that did not work. Like I wrote part of this book and, for example, you know, probably 2 or 3 weeks, and it just sucked, like the whole thing. I ended up like deleting it, but that's what helped me get to the next step, right? And then after that was better. So,
well, you posed a very powerful question. It's interesting, and I'm starting to really enjoy you being on the show. Just FYI, because we're not alike at all. Like the stuff that comes out of your mouth, I'm like, I didn't think that way. And first of all, this is so psycho. I gotta just confess this real fast. Number one, I'm having a conversation with another successful entrepreneur about people not being self-aware on their car, in their phone. I mean, all this craziness, right? But you said that the conflict or the struggle for leaders in society today, if you were to ask me that question, that did not pop in my mind. My first thing that came in my mind was FOMO, or fear.
Yes. Well, that's under a lot
but I really think that your perspective, and I think this was so great about being a coach, is because the people that you're working with are in line with what the information that you're distributing to them or helping them. Because you're right in what you're saying. I'm serious. I have a client right now that has brought self-awareness to me 100 times.
Wow.
And it's just weird. And I'm like, I get it. I try to be self-aware of the way I breathe, the way I interact, the clothes I wear. I mean, not for self-insecurity purposes, but how am I presenting myself? But when you pose that question, what's the struggle for young leaders or new leaders or not experienced leader, no matter the age, the first thing that came to my mind was fear.
Yeah.
And I think fear of the unknown.
That's right.
Fear of the success. I mean, most of the people that I work with or coach, it usually boils down to some form of fear. Fear of they didn't think they could do it. Fear that they can't raise the money. That used to be my number one thing 20 years ago when I was coaching people. I can't get into real estate because I got no money. That's fear.
Yes.
And like, it's awesome that I wrote my book on Be the Bank. I mean, I met the Orange Theory the other day, and the guy's like already got like 6-7 properties. His dad mentored him. And the guy's like, I need to flip more houses so I can get revenue. I'm like, you're dumb. That's not how you do it. You raise money, mother. And you can raise it through the bank, which I wouldn't recommend at this time because it's 9%. But you can use this thing called private money. And there's a ton of people. What's that? I mean, this guy's like 30-something years old, got 7 properties, working at the gym as a coach. He's a ripped dude in real estate. He understands the process of real estate. And I guess his dad, legacy down to him, the knowledge, but he was stuck at that one area. It's just interesting that, through the process of going through being uncomfortable, and he was just uncomfortable. And it was comfortable for him to just go flip a house.
And something I just thought of as you were talking, the reason I think, we've been talking today about being uncomfortable, right? And you just dropped a bomb on all of us. That's a lot of that's rooted in fear, right? Of not being afraid to
What's
take
the worst
action.
thing that could happen?
So yeah, I think some of us, when we get so uncomfortable, that's what we're afraid of, right? Being on that at the edge of something where we're not really sure if it's going to work out or not. And and I mentioned like that challenge with younger generation or younger leaders, the challenge is taking action, but I think that's all rooted in fear. The problem is when we get to this place where it's unknown and we don't know all the steps to take, rather that's very uncomfortable, right? And you can either make a decision in that of, I'm going to push through this. And this is like, there's something great. People say that, I can't remember who said it, great things never come from comfort zones. It's always everything you want in life that's really meaningful, that's deep, that's rich is outside your comfort zone. And it's painful. And it's hurtful. But guess what? Sometimes that's good for you.
It weathers you.
Right. I mean, why do people work out? Because it tears their muscle down and then they grow back stronger, right? Like that's basic,
physics.
Yeah. And so it's not bad to be uncomfortable. It's good and lean into it.
Yeah, I love that you brought this subject because it's interesting, and I think it's very powerful. In your own world right now, we're going to wrap this up. We're trying to keep these podcasts down to 30 minutes, just so you can come in, get something, and move on with your day. But really gravitate towards: are you too comfortable at this time in your life? Is it? And I'm reading this amazing book right now, and it's like Switchblade and something. It's like Davy Wilkinson. It's a missionary book on how he reached 1958 and how he reached the New York teenage gangs. It's a phenomenal book. It's David Wilkinson. It's Switchblade something. I can't remember the title. It has broke me. And right out the first thing, this guy read an article in Life magazine at that time, and it spurred him to get uncomfortable. And the simple decision that he made was, why am I watching late night TV? And he's talking to God here, and he's like, I'm going to, test God, and God, if I can sell this TV in 30 minutes, and he had to put an ad in the paper. He put an ad in the paper, and he opened up his notepad, and sure enough, within 30 minutes, someone called and he sold the TV. But the gist that I got from this one thing was, I'm comfortable every night watching late night TV, and what is it getting me? And it reminds me, and Chad, think of something that you really cut out of your life that made you uncomfortable. And I remember when I first was married, and we just didn't have a TV in the living room. We forced ourselves to work on ourselves, work on our relationship, and work on our business or whatever that at that moment, because TV makes you comfortable. It makes it feel good. That's why they call it comfort food. You eat pizza, it's comfort food. It makes you feel good. You're comfortable. So what decision can you make, or if this struck a chord in you, Chad, I would love to know what's something in your world. But in my world, I pulled the TV out, and reading that book reminded me, and this guy's life forever changed, that he saved. In the book, he's like, I took that 2 hours of late night TV out of my life, and I put it towards praying, and his whole life was transformed. It was just a reminder for me, where am I comfortable in my life right now? Is it living expenses, a certain house? Is it certain business activities I'm doing? Am I really, I notice when I go to Orange Theory, I can't get comfortable. The dude's yelling at me. But when I go to the gym, I don't run as hard by myself. I'm comfortable. I don't want to push myself. And so is there somewhere in your life, Chad, that you made a conscious decision to get uncomfortable? Is there an example that you can give us and wrap this up?
Yeah, I mean, I think one that's still sitting in our driveway. It's a reminder every time I pull in. And I'm not naturally great at being uncomfortable, because I like the older I get.
I think we all do. We're creatures of habit.
But we got this old Prius. It's a Toyota Prius, and it's
you drive a Prius?
I don't anymore. It's sitting in my driveway still, but it's our fourth vehicle.
This is awesome.
My daughter's driving it right now because her Bronco's down. But dude, this thing is a piece, and it has got it from a guy, almost nothing, almost no money. So never had a payment on it. It's never broken down. It's never been in the shop. We've driven it off and on for the last 4 years at basically zero cost. It costs like $30 to fill the thing up, and it'll drive for like weeks. And it had all the lights flash on the dash when so it had something wrong with the electrical system, but it's relatively safe. And safe enough for my daughter to drive some. But that Prius, I think for me, every time I see it, and it doesn't look good, I'm going to be honest. Like sometimes my wife Macy is like, can we drive it off a cliff, burn it, donate it? And for whatever reason, we've kept it. And it's just a reminder to me that there's more important things in life than the stuff that's in our driveway, that house and that's on our, that we live in. Like you said, the TV that's on the wall, the furniture that's passed down from our mom or dad. And it's okay to give up things, we love so that we can have more things that we really, really love.
No,
and that's
I love
meaning,
it.
it's life, it's options, it's freedom for us. And for you guys listening, it's something else. But I just want you to take heart and action on something that Stephen or I have maybe challenged you to do today. And man, give up something. Or if you're in a place where you're super comfortable, why? Why are you so comfortable? Is it because you're afraid to take a risk? Is it because you've surrounded yourself with safety and you're not challenging yourself? Do something with this podcast today. Don't just, listen to it and go, yeah, it's a good idea. Like really self-reflect, get some time alone and dig and ask the tough questions.
Awesome. So stoked that you tuned in today. Make sure you visit chadmissildine.com, the Savvy Radio Show, savvypodcast.com. Hey, give us a review. Actually reach out. Someone actually reached out from a podcast the other day and from Ohio. I think that's really cool. And I appreciate you telling us and that you're out there trying to get it done. So we appreciate those comments and letting us know that you're hearing us. And so we can just continue to be motivated, get more uncomfortable, write more podcasts, and be all that we can be. We appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to the Savvy Radio Show. Glide online and listen to our other motivating episodes at savvyradioshow.com. Connect on Twitter at LandlordBook and always be buying assets.